start. See, today I'm going to talk about most of the time uh, angular momentum. Angular momentum. While when we discuss scattering cross section in terms of scattering amplitude square, we have to write a scattering amplitude in terms of partial waves, and there we need angular momentum. Therefore, I thought that first let us discuss the angular momentum problem, and then we will come back to the topic which we are discussing, and that the cross section is nothing but the mod of the scattering amplitude square. Now, the angular momentum of algebra, which I shall be discussing, already you have been taught in BSc, but just to recapitulate what you have done, you know that in classical physics, the angular momentum of the particle of momentum p and position r is defined as L is equal to r cross p. Okay, and then you write the different components like Lx, Ly, Lz, and this Lx is how much? Ypz minus Zpy. Ly is Zpx minus Xpz, and this is Xpy minus Ypx. The important point is that when we move to quantum mechanics, then these dynamical variables, they become operators. Okay, the dynamical variables of classical mechanics, they become operators in quantum mechanics, and this then we write it as minus IH cross del by del Z, and this is minus Z minus IH cross del by del Y. This gives you minus IH cross, I can take common, Y del by del Z minus Z del by. This is how you write Lx, Ly and Lz in quantum mechanics. Okay, similarly you can do it for Ly and you can do it for Lz. Now this Lx, Ly, Lz, they obey some commutation relation, okay, and the eigenvalues associated with these angular momentum operators are real, and that means the operator is Hermitian. Okay, therefore if we talk about the commutator of Lx, Ly, so this is given by just using the expressions here, Ypz minus Zpy, comma Zpx minus Xpz. And then you evaluate it, how many terms would be there? 4 Ypz Zpx minus Ypz Xpz minus Zpy Zpx and plus ZPY XPZ. And then for each term here, we rewrite it as Y comma Z PZ PX plus PY PZ Z PX plus plus YZ PZ PX plus 1 second. Hello. Yes, YZ PZ PX, and what we are left with YZ YPX. YPX means Z here, YPX, and here it will be PZ. That there will be 4 terms corresponding to each. But what you realize that when you write something like this, then YZ will be 0, PZ PX will be 0, YPX will be 0. Only XPX, ZPZ or PZZ, such types of terms are going to contribute. Therefore, in principle, here you will have 16 terms, 4 corresponding to this, to this, to this, and to this. But what are the terms which are really going to contribute? The terms which are going to contribute is YPZ, ZPX. Here YX will be 0, YPZ will be 0, PZX will be 0, PZPZ will be 0. Therefore, this is at all not going to contribute. Then we have ZZ will be 0, ZPX will be 0, PYZ will be 0, and PYPX will be 0. Therefore, this is also not going to contribute. Now, let us talk about this term. Here we have ZPZ, only this is going to contribute. And for ZPZ, what we have, X on this side and PY on this side. Is it fine? Now, what is ZPZ? IH cross. And what is PZZ? Minus IH cross. Therefore, this is IH cross XPY minus YP. And this is nothing but IH cross LZ. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you see, similarly, we can write LY, LZ, and LZ LX. What we do, instead of writing it individually, we write it as Li Lj. This is equal to IH cross epsilon IJK Lk. That means here IJK stands for XYZ or 1, 2, 3. What is the property associated with this epsilon? Is that epsilon for a cyclic permutation, either you call it by 1, 2, 3 or XYZ, for cyclic permutation 1, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, then 2, 3, 1, this is plus 1, or epsilon 1, 3, 2, this will be minus 1. But if you repeat the indices 1, 1, 2 or 2, 2, 3 or epsilon 1, 3, 3, all of them for repeated indices, this will be equal to 0. Therefore, in short, you can write Li Lj commutator as IH cross epsilon IJK Lk. Similarly, you can evaluate Px Lz, or this you can write it as Px xpy minus ypx. Here also in principle there will be 4 terms, but what you realize that Px is going to contribute, Px-Py commutator will be 0, Px-Y commutator will be 0, and Px-Px commutator will be 0. Now Px X commutator Py, this is what is going to contribute, and this is nothing but minus IH cross Py. Similarly, you can think of, I'm not going to do it, Pz Lx or Py Lz. You can work them out, that what will be those results. You can also work with, say, y Lx. What will be y Lx? This will be equal to ypz minus zpy, and this will be 0, 0, 0, and ypy is only going to contribute, that means minus z ypy, and that will be equal to minus IH cross. Therefore, you can then think about XLX, XLY, and so on. Therefore, this is how you evaluate YLX. Now, if I ask you the question, what will be, say, for example, Px L square? Now, L square is nothing but Lx square plus Ly square plus Lz square, and that will be equal to Lx Lx plus Ly Ly plus Lz Lz. and then that means I can write it as Px Lx Lx Ly Ly plus Lz Lz, and then again two terms from here, two terms from here, and two terms for here. This we will write it as Px Lx Lx plus Lx Px Lx, and so on. Now, when you will solve it using the previous results, you can write it as IH cross Ly Pz plus Pz Ly minus Lz Py minus Py Lz. This will be Px L square. Similarly, you can work out XL square, YL square, ZL square, or PYL square, PZL square. These are the various commutation rules that angular momentum operator and obeys. Okay. Now, when we introduce total angular momentum operator, and why we introduce total angular momentum operator, that is what I am going to discuss. Now, the same algebra that we talked about was applied to the total angular momentum operator, J, which was defined as sum of orbital angular momentum operator and the spin angular momentum operator. Why this J was required? I have discussed it in at least in two turns. Why J was required? Anybody? See, what I had told you, that if you have been given Hamiltonian of any system, and if there is an operator O, Hamiltonian for a given system, and the operator O, now the quantum number associated with this operator O will be a conserved quantum number when this will commute with the Hamiltonian of the system. This is very important point in quantum mechanics, that for any observable you have an operator in quantum mechanics. Now that observable means that is an experimentally observed quantity that you should be able to measure in the experiments, that you should be able to see in the experiments. That means that should be reality. Now, the operator associated with the observable, if commutes with the Hamiltonian of the system, then the quantum number associated with this operator O will be conserved quantum numbers. Okay? But what happened when Dirac developed his relativistic theory for electrons, and it was found that the Dirac Hamiltonian does not commute with the angular momentum operator. Dirac Hamiltonian for the relativistic spin half particles, this was the Hamiltonian for the electron, which is a relativistic particle with a spin half. This does not commute with the Hamiltonian. Okay, therefore what he did, he tried to add a quantity such that this Hamiltonian commutes with the given operator O, and that operator he called as the complete operator. And then he said that now the observable associated with this operator will be a conserved quantity, will be a conserved quantum number. Therefore, what happened? Although orbital angular momentum was already established in classical physics, it was already, people were well aware of the fact that they do exist, they have been experimentally seen. Therefore, directly you cannot deny orbital angular momentum operator. The important point was that orbital angular momentum operator was all alone was not sufficient to describe physics. What he argued that we need an extra operator along with the orbital angular momentum operator, then only this makes the total operator to be a complete operator such that the quantum number, the observable associated with this operator, they are conserved quantity, they are experimentally observed quantity. This is how the concept of total angular momentum came into existence. Then it was argued that if I put any system, be a hydrogen atom system, be it a silver atom system, be it any system, in the ground S state, in the ground S state corresponding to L equal to 0, S state means L equal to 0, P state means L equal to 1, and so on, then J will only be J will only get the contribution from the spin angular momentum operator. And that means if we are talking about electron having a spin half, then electron has a spin half whose projection in the magnetic field can be plus half or it can be minus half in the magnetic field. Then the experiment of Stern and Gerlach was experimentally understood that really what is happening when you are taking the atoms in the ground state, then you are still observing the splitting of atoms. This is because electrons have got a spin half, and when they pass through in a homogeneous magnetic field, say the magnetic field is along the z direction, then there is a projection of a spin which has two possible orientations, plus half h cross and minus half h cross, and that is why the splitting of beams took place entirely into two different equal components. This is how Stern-Gerlach experiment was understood. Therefore, when the Dirac theory of electrons came into the market, this Dirac theory was applied to understand Stern and Gerlach experiment by Uhlenbeck and Gordon-Smith, and they tried to understand these results with the help of the concept that our orbital angular momentum operator is not the complete story, but it is the total angular momentum operator which is in reality important. Wait for a second. Yes. Now, J is L plus S. Therefore, if you have orbital angular momentum and spin angular momentum, then you have the total angular momentum. And this J has components Jx, Jy, Jz. And J square is here also Jx square plus Jy square plus Jz square. Therefore, the important point is this spin S is purely a quantum mechanical phenomena. There is no classical analog, or physically one cannot describe spin in any way in classical physics. Okay? Therefore, spin is an intrinsic property possessed by a system, and it was introduced first theoretically by Dirac, later experimentally it was observed while explaining or understanding many experiments. Okay. Now what I am telling you, that the total angular momentum operator also obey all the commutation relation which we have discussed for orbital angular momentum. For example, what I have told you, that Li Lj is IH cross epsilon ijk Lk, then that means Ji Jj, this is equal to IH cross epsilon Ijk Jk. Okay. Or we have x L square equal to 0. Here this will be x J square, this will be equal to 0. Or J square Jx is 0, J square Jy is 0, J square Jz is 0, but Ji Jj, that means Jx Jy, whatever you call, this is not equal to 0. This is not equal to 0. Now, what does this mean? That J square Jx commutator is 0. This means that J square and Jx, they can be represented by a joint eigenstate with different eigenvalues. They can be represented by a joint eigenstate with different eigenvalues. Similarly, that will be true for the second part, and that would be true for the third part, but that won't be true for the last relation, because Jx, Jy or like that, they don't commute among themselves. Therefore, since j squared jx commute, j squared jy commute, and j squared jz commute, but jx, jy, jz among themselves don't commute, therefore you cannot have simultaneous eigenstate for all three of them. Otherwise, then you have this choice. Therefore, what traditionally one does, one takes j square and jz to be represented simultaneously by joint eigenstate, and that joint eigenstate generally is represented by alpha beta. We will try to determine in our perhaps on the Monday's class what will be this alpha beta. Okay, therefore alpha beta is the joint eigenstate, okay, of, this is the joint eigenstate of j square and jz, and the eigenvalue of j square is alpha h cross square and jz is beta h cross. Okay, because see, angular momentum is always measured in units of h cross, and j square is always measured in the units of h cross square, because j square in principle is jx square plus jy square plus jz square, and since you are talking about jz square and jz is h cross, so therefore jz square should have h cross square. Therefore, the important point is that we write j square operating on this joint eigenstate, giving rise to eigenvalue alpha h cross square, alpha beta, and jz alpha beta, this is equal to beta h cross alpha beta. Now our task will be to determine the value of alpha and beta. What is the value of alpha and beta? Okay, these states which we are talking about, they are orthogonal and they are normalized. What do we mean by that? That alpha prime, beta prime, alpha beta, this is, we can write as delta alpha alpha prime, delta beta beta prime. Okay, these states are orthogonal and these states are normalized. Okay, and our task is to determine the value of, what is this value of alpha and beta. Now to proceed ahead, what to determine, in order to determine alpha and beta, what we do, we redefine the angular momentum component. Is there any question?
Yes, sir. Sir, why we are only taking the commutator of j square, comma jz? Why not j square, comma jy, or j square, comma jz?
You are free to do that, but you can have only one choice. If you stick to j square jx, then you cannot take j square jz or j square jy, because jx, jy and jz among themselves, they don't commute. Suppose if there are three operators and all the three operators commute among themselves, O1, O2 commutes, O1, O3 commutes, O2, O3 commutes, then all three operators can be represented by a simultaneous eigenkette, which will give rise to three different eigenvalues corresponding to those three operators. Okay, but here in this case what is happening, although j square is independently commuting with jx, jy and jz, but jx, jy, jz, they are not commuting among themselves. Therefore, you cannot have a common eigenstate for all these four operators. Okay, you cannot have a common eigenstate for all these four operators. Okay,
Yes, sir.
is it clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that and but what I am telling you that this is just a choice, and the conventional choice is we take j square and jz. Okay,
Yes, sir.
but you are free to do that for jx or jy. The other important point, if you recall, I don't know whether you have been taught that way in BSc or not. When we write orbital angular momentum operator Lx, Ly and Lz in spherical polar coordinates, then Lz has got a very simple expression, minus IH cross delta upon delta phi. While Lx and Ly, they have a complicated expression, and that means if I make a choice of what I was talking about was where it got disconnected. Yes. What we were discussing was the following: j square alpha beta, this is alpha h cross square alpha beta, and jz alpha beta is beta h cross alpha beta. Okay, and our task is to determine alpha and beta. Okay, and in order to determine alpha and beta, what we are going to do is in the case of harmonic oscillator problem, where we used raising and lowering operators. Here also we define j plus and j minus as the two new operators, where j plus is jx plus ijy and j minus is jx minus ijy. Okay, equivalently you can say that in this new terminology, my jx, just add these two, is half j plus plus j minus, and jy is 1 by 2i j plus minus j minus, and that is equal to minus I by 2 j plus minus j minus, such that if I write jx square, this will be square of this quantity, and since this is an operator, therefore this will be j plus plus j minus plus j minus j plus j minus j minus or jy square would be minus square and minus 1 by 4 j plus minus j minus j minus j plus j minus j. And you can just tell me in 2 minutes what will be j square j plus, or what will be j square j minus? Tell me. This j plus is jx plus ijy. Therefore, this is jx plus ijy. And what is j squared jx and j squared jy? 0.
0.
Because j. So therefore, this quantity is 0. Similarly, this quantity would be equal to 0. Therefore, you can write j square j plus minus, this is equal to 0. Okay? Is it clear? Similarly, if I write j plus j minus commutator, this will be equal to jx plus ijy, comma jx minus ijy. Tell me in 1 minute what will be the answer. Anybody? See, jx will be 0. Jx minus ijy is going to contribute. And then jx is going to contribute. This is how much? Anybody? We have seen that Jij is IH cross epsilon ijk jk. That means Jx Jy. This will be Jx Jy. This will be IH cross Jz. But Jy Jz will be, Jy Jx will be minus IH cross Jz. Okay? And if then one is minus IH cross Jz, this one, and this is plus IH cross Jz. I times minus I will make this plus 1, and I times minus I will make this plus 1. This will be how much then?
Twice
Twice H cross
JZ.
Jz. Similarly, you can work out and tell me what is what Jz j plus minus. You can see that this will turn out to be plus minus H cross J plus minus. Minus means Jz J plus will be with a plus sign, H cross J plus, and Jz J minus will be with a minus sign, H cross J minus. Okay. Also, we can write J plus J minus as Jx square plus Jy square plus H cross Jz, because this is Jx plus Ijy and this is Jx minus Ijy. Therefore, this is Gx square, then minus Ijxjy plus Ijyjx, and then my plus Jy square. Therefore, we have from here and here gx square plus jy square, and then you have commutator of jx and jy, and that will give you h cross jz. Similarly, j minus j plus, this will be equal to, and moreover this, okay, let me first write, this is gx square plus jy square minus minus h cross jz. And since we know that j square is jx square plus jy square plus jz square, therefore I can write this also as j square minus jz square plus h cross jz, and this as j square minus jz square minus h cross jz. Okay, this is j square minus jz square plus h cross jz, and this is j square minus jz square minus ih cross jz. Is it clear? Now if you add these two equations, what you will have, j plus j minus j plus, this is equal to 2j square minus jz square. That means your j square is also equal to half j plus j minus j minus j plus jz. Okay, j square is half j plus j minus j minus j plus jz square, or equivalently you can write it as j square is also equal to j plus j minus jz square, plus jz square minus h cross jz, and equivalently you can write this as j minus j plus jz square plus h cross jz. Therefore there are various ways of writing j square in terms of j plus and j minus. Now the question arises, we have defined j plus as jx plus ijy and j minus as gx minus ijy. How I am telling you that j plus I will call it as a raising operator and j minus I will call it as lowering operator. The important point that we should remember is the following before I make that conclusion. Suppose when I wrote jz j plus, this was equal to h cross j plus, and similarly this was true for jz j minus. That means they don't commute. This implies that j plus minus do not commute with jz. This would imply for sure that the ket we are talking about, alpha beta, are not the eigenstate of j plus minus, because if alpha beta is an eigenstate of jz by our choice, and since j plus minus do not commute with jz, therefore alpha beta cannot be an eigenstate of j plus minus. Okay, that means if I have jz j plus alpha beta, okay, this I can write it as just the properties which we have jotted down a few minutes ago. And if you want, I can see here, this is jz j plus h cross j plus. This means that this is jz j plus minus j plus jz. This is h cross j plus, and then I can write it as jz j plus is equal to h cross j plus j plus jz. This the same I am going to use here, h cross j plus j plus jz operating on alpha beta. This we will write it as h cross j plus alpha beta plus j plus jz alpha beta. And what is jz operating on alpha beta? This gives us beta h cross by definition. Therefore, this is h cross j plus alpha beta plus beta h cross j plus alpha beta, and that means I can write this as h cross beta plus 1 j plus alpha beta. Similarly, if you take jz j minus operating on alpha beta, this will turn out to be h cross beta minus 1 j minus alpha beta. H cross beta minus 1 j minus alpha beta. And that is why we try to associate j plus and j minus with the raising and lowering operators. I will continue doing this mathematics again on Monday because this angular momentum algebra requires reasonably good mathematics, and then only the physics part will come out of it. Therefore, let me stop here. Try to reconfirm all the steps, okay, and then see, the important point is without angular momentum algebra, without understanding angular momentum, you cannot understand either atomic physics or molecular physics or particle or nuclear physics. Therefore, if you want to understand really well these topics, you must understand the physics of angular momentum. And I will do it in great detail. What are the basic concepts? And even in this angular momentum topic, many questions in net and at competition level that comes. Okay, in the next 4-5 lectures, I will do lot of mathematics, and then only I will start discussing physics. Let us stop here. We shall meet on Monday at 11.